Uh-oh. So it looks like it has us going live at 5 minutes ahead of time.
All right.
Because I'm just leaving football practice.
Okay.
Come out on you guys. So if my stream doesn't work properly, it's probably because I'm on cell phone.
I appreciate you for letting us know.
I'm gonna go double check the Facebook page.
Okay.
To make sure it's streaming.
Sounds wonderful. And if we are live and anyone can hear us, we're just taking these extra few moments to work out the tech and make sure everything is flowing properly before we get started at 7.
Are we introducing ourselves, or are you introducing us?
I'm going to introduce everyone. So what'll happen is, with the email that I sent you earlier, I'll introduce myself. I'll tell why we're here, and then I'll do the bio for each person. And then I'll go over housekeeping and how the flow of the actual panel will go for everyone, to explain it to you all, but then also to let everyone that's tuning in know as well.
Okay.
And just as we're sitting here, it's just like a free flow of conversation. So there'll be just kind of prompts for us to talk backwards and forth about. And if you look at the actual email that's sent, that's what those things are. Just kind of so that you know what the flow is. Each person won't have to answer every question. There will be a few icebreakers, and we'll ask each person to go around. The way that the order that I'll introduce everybody is just by going from left to right, the way that everyone is on my screen. And I'm just checking in to see where Lita might be.
Shanae, on your phone, would you double check your Facebook pages to see if we're streaming live there? Because I'm not seeing it on the Manal for Mayor page.
Yep, the Facebook pages just said 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
The Facebook page has said that we'll start in 3 minutes. So when I see the event on the Facebook page, it says going live in 2 minutes and 2 seconds.
Gotcha. So it doesn't start streaming until then. That makes sense. Okay. I've got 2 folks in the Zoom.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and pull them in.
Okay. And maybe it's telling us that, but I see on the actual Zoom, it says it'll start in 2 minutes as well. So it looks like it might be integrated. We'll see. So I'm going to mute just for a moment because I'm going to call Lita.
I'm going to turn my camera off.
Hey, Jackson, I think people need to be let in from the studio, from backstage. Jackson, can you hear me? Hi, everyone. We're just taking a moment to get everyone on our screen, and then we will get started with our program.
Shanae, I'm here.
Is there anyone that needs to be let in from backstage?
Does not appear
I don't
to
see
be.
Manal on the screen.
Oh, Manal is here now.
And everyone, I apologize for the delay. We have one more panelist, and I'm just reaching out to her to make sure everything is okay, and then we shall get started. And one of our panelists is having a tech issue. Just one moment. Okay, we're going to get started and then hope that we can get that tech issue resolved. Welcome, everyone, to our 1 week out, a roundtable discussion. My name is Shanae Jackson. I'll be tonight's moderator. The way that we'll start everything is that I will introduce myself. I will discuss why we're all here tonight. We will introduce all of our panelists, and then we will work and actually go through the actual order of the program. So just to introduce myself to everyone who might not know, my name is Shanae Jackson. I'm a proud mom, a passionate community activist, a servant leader, a change agent, and an entrepreneur. My ethical standards, collaborative community engagement efforts, and proven track record make me a trusted resource to many. I often encourage underrepresented voters to run, not walk to the polls, because voting is the equalizer that grants us all the same level of power. Since 2016, I have strategically built an activism brand based on accountability, compassion, credibility, and empathy, and also dependability. I serve the community in too many capacities to name here. My mission is to bring awareness to current social issues, address gaps in services, and work to offer fresh solutions for the existing social issues. I passionately believe our wealth is only as valuable as the community around us. Welcome to everyone that is tuning in via Zoom, also via Facebook Live. We are 1 week from what we believe to be an historic election. One important thing that always gets lost in the shuffles of elections is the why. I always want people to know and understand that the why is important. When we talk about candidates, when we talk about issues, we understand that the importance of it and what it is taking care of people in order to build a better and more solid community. This panel represents Dr. Manal Fakori's ability to build bridges and be a transformational leader. Transformational leadership is a leadership style in which leaders encourage, inspire, and motivate others to innovate and create change that will help grow and shape future successes. This is accomplished by setting an example through a strong sense of culture, agency, and collaboration. Transformational leadership is designed to give everyone a voice and more room to be creative, to look to the future and find new solutions to old problems. Transformational leaders themselves go through mentorship and training programs. Through our conversation today, we will establish Manal's innate ability to build community while addressing overarching issues and needs of our beloved community. I do want to address our beloved community and what that actually means before we actually do our introductions. The beloved community is viewed as the prescription for a healthy community. It is a community in which everyone is cared for, absent of poverty, hunger, and hate. The beloved community was popularized by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. during his lifetime of activism. It imbued in with new meaning, fueled by his faith, and that such a community was in fact possible. Dr. King also acknowledged that realizing his vision would involve systems of law, education, infrastructure, healthcare, and municipal reform. We also must understand that it's not just one person or one sector, but we all do it together. Manal's campaign and the leadership that she will bring to the table embodies the beloved community. So today, Manal and an amazing group of individuals that represent a broad cross section of the beloved community that we want to envision. The members of this panel represent varied nationalities, genders, socioeconomic levels, geographies of the city, educational levels, and political ideologies. Our panel exemplifies Manal's commitment to serve all of Ocala. I'd like to take you now next to introduce you to Manal. Dr. Manal Fakori is a 35-year citizen of Ocala, a pharmacist, a community leader, a public servant, a mom, and our next mayor. She is running on a platform of serving all of Ocala. The proud child of immigrants and an immigrant herself, Manal has spent her time in Ocala investing in our community, our youth, in the arts. Manal holds the license for TEDx Ocala, a speaker series she brought to our community. She is a wife, a mom, a grandmother, small business owner, and the best choice for the mayor of Ocala. Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Joanne Cornell Ullman. She is a licensed psychologist who has served children and families in the Marion County area for over 30 years. She is a native of Sanford, Florida, and moved to Ocala with her husband after completing her PhD in clinical psychology at the University of Kentucky. In addition to her private practice, Dr. Cornell Ullman spearheads community projects utilizing creative arts to enhance the mental wellness of youth and families. Currently, she is actively involved in several outreach programs through Fort King Presbyterian Church, partnering with St. Paul AME to feed underserved people in West Ocala, coordinating with intergenerational art programs called Art for All to build connections between people of all faiths and ethnicities, helping develop a community center for arts and other programs known as the Hope House, which will be open to the public in 2022. She and her husband enjoy visiting their son and his young family in South Carolina as often as possible. The next panelist I would like to introduce is Hal Arnett. He is certified by the American Board of and I hope I don't butcher this, Kyle, opticianry, and is a practice manager. He is the third generation following his mother and grandmother in opticianry. Kyle has worked throughout his life on various political campaigns, from local to gubernatorial. Recently, he has worked with his corporate diversity, equity, and inclusion team to foster inclusive practices in his majority minority company. The next panelist is Derek L. Ponder Jr. He is a community leader and entrepreneur, owner of Urban Styles Beauty and Barbershop LLC and Ponder's Christian Learning Center LLC. Born on April 15th, 1980 in Gainesville, Florida, I'm a Gainesville native, to the late Vivian Thrower and Derek Ponder Sr., he moved with his grandmother Hester Donaldson Thrower at the age of 3, where she raised him and instilled values in him that groomed a young Derek into the man he is today. Being an Ocala native, Derek attended Vanguard High School, where he excelled in academics. Derek was also an all-around athlete at Vanguard, being involved in football, basketball, track and field, and weightlifting. Aside from sports, he was a committed member to the Fellowship of Christian Athletes and the Interact Club. To further his education, he earned his degree in early childhood education from the College of Central Florida, then earning a second degree from Southeastern University in professional and business leadership. Even with all of his accomplishments, Derek is above all a family man, being married to his wife Tyra Ponder and a dedicated father to their 5 children. His passion for family and unity is what drives his pursuit in our community, reaching out to connect with the younger generation and show them that there's a better life out there, that they are much more than their struggles and how to push past their fears and insecurities to become all that they can be. Derek has been a youth leader, a youth coordinator, and a youth pastor. Derek has been a part of many committees here in Ocala, such as the Stop the Violence events, Mad Dads, SAD Club, and the Martin Luther King Committee with the NAACP, and volunteer coaching for MCYFL and Vanguard High School. Being led by God and doing all things through love and respect, Derek is being the example of what a man should be, how a man should operate, and this is only the beginning. One moment. There is one speaker that is having tech issues, and that is Ms. Lita Perez. I would like to defer that if she is able to get her internet connection working, that I will take a break in order to introduce her properly. But first, we're going to start with housekeeping. So just want to make sure that everyone knows the outline of tonight's panel and also to explain how things will go. We are expected and have time allotted to 9 p.m. It is our best to want to respect people's times, and we hope that we don't go to 9 unless the conversation is that robust. We will take a 5-minute break at 8 p.m., and that's just to give everyone the opportunity to go to the bathroom, to get water or anything like that. But by all means, if you're thirsty throughout the panel, this is really laid back. We just want to take the opportunity for people to know more about Manal, the platform that she represents, but then also to know about the people in the community that support her and why, because that is important. Everyone does not have to answer every single question. So please, we don't want to push or prod. We would like to give everyone opportunity to have a voice, and that's what this is about. In the icebreakers, we will go through and have each person that is a part of the panel to be able to actually interject and give their input as it relates to those icebreakers, or if we want to call them team building activities. Once we discuss each of the actual issues or solutions that we actually will have, we will give Manal the opportunity to kind of interject and talk about her track record previously, but then also discuss possible solutions that she might have once she actually is elected as mayor. If you all have any questions, you're more than welcome to drop them into the chat. You're more than welcome to ask those questions at this particular roundtable. For us, this is about community. It's about amplifying a diverse group of voices, but also highlighting and representing everyone in our community. Are there any questions I can answer at this moment? Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about respect. And the prompt is, or the question is, when you think of the word respect, what does respect mean to you? And how will that transition or flow over into our community? And then we will start with Derek.
Could you repeat that question for me again?
Yes, we just want to discuss respect. What does respect mean to you? And how do we believe that respect can translate into uplifting in our community?
Respect is a quality that I think we all should carry throughout our community. In the regard to how it translates into our community, of course, as has been publicized, national news and abroad, with policing, and I think that is one of the big issues that we have in our community is the right way to police. I think we do have some good things happening right now, but we still need to get in there and smooth out some of the procedures and the policies that we have. And I think we need to also add some training to be able to fully understand culture, to fully understand just the people of our community. So I believe that's one way that we can go after gaining the respect of our community when it relates to our city government.
Thank you. And then the next person that's on the screen, Kyle. Would you like me to repeat the prompt or the question?
I think I'm good.
Okay.
I think to me, respect really means fostering an environment where everybody has the ability to speak, giving everybody the respect and humanity to be able to have their say on any subject, on any issue that's happening. I do like that right now it's being fostered into Manal's campaign just by having this event and having us all here. I would like to see more of the respect fostered into the city of Ocala with more diversity, more training, and a little bit more understanding of how to work together.
That sounds great. Joanne?
It's interesting. I work with a lot of families here in my office, and the issue of respect comes up a lot, and it has to do with being able to listen to one another for the purpose of understanding rather than attacking, and to be able to disagree without attacking the person. And I respect so much the way Manal is running not only this campaign, but I think the way that she has led her entire life, which is by respecting the people that she comes in contact with and listening to them and honoring them as people. And even under the attack that she has experienced in this last couple of months, she has maintained that.
I agree. I'm excited that Lita was actually able to get her internet working in order to join us. So I just want to take a moment in order to properly introduce Lita. And then I'll ask Lita the actual question before we get to Manal. Lita Perez is an integrative wellness consultant and entrepreneur. Her energy, enthusiasm, and dedication to her clients gives them the edge they need to succeed. An inspiration to all who know her, she is a gifted speaker and a knowledgeable and talented life coach. She teaches how to recognize and celebrate the abundant gifts within us all that encourage life transformation. Her passion for lifting up those around her is motivating, infectious, and life affirming. She believes we can create an extraordinary life. Alita, what we're doing is just now taking a moment to get to know each other. And the question is, what does respect mean to you? And how can that translate in order to uplift our beloved community?
Thank you so much. I apologize for the camera not working. I'm having issues with my computer. So respect, it has to be earned, doesn't it? And you can see that it is earned by those people who act in a certain manner and speak in a certain manner. I have to say that the first time I met Manal, I just knew she was someone who, when she spoke, her words matter. And what she was saying was always very much to her heart. Respect for me is when you can see everyone as an equal, that you treat everyone, no matter what side of the road they come from, no matter where they live, that you can see them as a vital part of humanity. So I love that about Dr. Manal Curry. And the reason that I am voting for her is because you don't feel less than in front of her. If nothing else, she has an ability to guide you and lift you and see the goodness in all. One of my favorite little things that I have on my email is the greatest thing you can do is serve humanity. And certainly this is something that she is constantly at the forefront, is to serve humanity is the greatest thing that you can do. And that's what Dr. Manal Curry does for her.
Thank you. And then, of course, the woman of the hour, or the Manal. We'd like to know, what is your view of respect and how do you believe that it can uplift our community?
Okay, there, I'm unmuted. Technology. Thank you, Shanae. Hello, everyone, and thank you for those just answers. For me, respect is universal. Respect is humility. It's the ability to not see yourself as above others, and rather just to allow yourself to really learn from each other and question yourself, because there's so much value in speaking with people that have different opinions than you. And something I learned years ago is that every one of us has an opinion. Opinions are like belly buttons. Everyone has one. So it is best to take the opportunity rather than just to listen, only so you're responding, but rather listen to see if there's something that you may not know that can change or shift in your own mind or allow you to understand the other person. It's a challenge to do that exercise, but it really allows us all to grow and to connect. So for me, respect is universal. It's an aspect of our own humility to be able to work and connect with other people.
That's wonderful. So I just also want to let people know that are tuning in. We're going to go through the panels and the prompts. We will have opportunity at the end of the roundtable discussion to take some of the audience questions. So if you're tuned in on Zoom or Facebook, if you go ahead and would like to submit some of those questions, we will take the opportunity to answer a few of those toward the end. So now the reason for the icebreaker or for the activity is respect is because we understand that often it's not just what you do in governance, it's how you do it. We realize and understand that a lot of times the reason that people are disengaged and the reason that people don't feel represented is not because they necessarily are not represented. It's because they don't feel respected and they don't feel valued. We also want to understand that sometimes many of the misunderstandings are just because we all view and see respect in an extremely different manner. So understanding because we communicate in different ways does not mean that we don't have the opportunity in order to overcome some of those challenges in order to be able to work together collaboratively. One of the things that I want to point out that's been very eye-opening for me is even with some of our organizers that actually go out and knock on doors, when people are upset and they are opposed to, they state well, they're opposed to Manal being our next mayor, they leave them with, and you're entitled, it is your civic duty, but just know that she's going to serve you just as well as people that actually support her. And that's a great level of respect that a lot of people actually don't get once people actually elected, to know that a person that is there or in an office is there to represent all people, even people that disagree. And so I want to transition and actually talk about the culture of respect. The culture of respect is a culture where trust is the foundation. A culture of respect can be viewed as the walls protecting our community from the harsh elements and keep our community supportive and productive. Respect is the glue for strong, lasting relationships. It's an ingredient to grow self-worth and confidence in all members of our beloved community. Community members, in turn, are proactive and innovative and actively participate in the tasks to make our community stronger. Respect is a culture that empowers people and breeds a culture of continuous improvement. And the culture of continuous improvement promises longevity and success that the community aspires to. So I'd like to actually start with one of our first questions is, over the last decade, many people in our community have expressed frustration with the culture and disrespect that emits from City Hall. The question is, what is missing from the culture that hinders the culture of care? And what is needed in order to overcome that? And then whoever would like to chime in, if you'd like to.
I think one of the biggest key points that could possibly be missing is training. In corporate, I really focus a lot on training my staff. Training equals retention. Training reduces cost, but training also helps foster an educative and productive environment. One of the recent trainings that we did was, which I really enjoyed, was how to deal with microaggressions. Manal has said before, perception is reality. I even took it from her and used it in one of my trainings a couple of months ago. So what people are seeing is a lack of training, ability to work with others and foster a healthy relationship and healthy amount of productivity. So I think that could be a good area of opportunity.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to weigh in? And I'm more than happy to ask the question again. Joanne, I'm going to pick on you. And the reason, yes.
I'm really a newcomer to this whole game or this experience of learning about the way the city works. And I think for me, the trigger was a couple of years ago when the current mayor proclaimed a Confederate Memorial Day for the city of Ocala. And I don't know much about the inner workings of the city and city hall and all the administrators, but I know that that sent a message, regardless of how he may feel inside, that that action in and of itself sent a message to a whole lot of people in Ocala that your feelings really don't matter, and dismissed an incredibly important segment of our society, and a culture of respect that would not have happened. And I think training, that's a really good point, Kyle. I think that's got to be a critical point. And how do we help each other understand how the other feels, and not make assumptions and generalizations. And anyway, it's interesting because a lot of politicians will make empty promises and say kind of, well, trust me, hang in there and I'll show you. And Manella's kind of the opposite, because she's shown us for 35 years the way she will treat people and the way she will lead. And so we already know that. And I know she does it with respect. Everyone who knows her will say that. Yeah.
Thank you. Lita?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Absolutely. So the question is, over the last decade, many people have expressed frustration with the culture of the disrespect that emits from City Hall. What is missing from the culture that hinders a culture of care?
I have to agree with the gentleman who spoke before, and it is all about educating people, training them, allowing them to have that opportunity to learn better ways to communicate and better ways to understand. If you're not training them, if you're not opening up that opportunity of learning and growing, then they'll always believe what they're going to believe. And to do it with a heart of compassion. One of the things that I've learned in the teachings that I am currently studying is that we need to put ourselves in that space, and we never attack people by saying, or go to people and say, what's wrong with you? Instead, we need to ask the question is, what happened to you? What happened to you? Why is it that you feel the way you do? In doing that, we open that opportunity to communicate and understand. I hope that was helpful.
Absolutely. And Derek?
Well, I was just listening, and I think he was exactly right with getting educated on how to understand, how to nurture those in our community, and provide the services of the community that's needed. So many times we find out over time, and we can come into maybe a meeting or something and find out what has been done for the community, but we never really have an opportunity to be involved in explaining what we feel if it's needed. And I've been in a few meetings and had a few different opportunities, but I'm one of few that are actually involved in some meetings and coordinations within our community. And I know there's opportunities, but when we have working class individuals that are concerned with our community, but they just don't have the time to get involved, we have to find new and innovative ways to get them involved and to get the information out so people will actually know what's being done for them within our community. Because so many times, you know, with the busyness of life, I think people just kind of pass over and kind of do business as normal when they don't realize or feel like there's anything being done.
Thank you. So I want to let it known that Leader did interject and said that education is unending. The more we learn, the greater we can become and invest in others. And then Manal.
Yeah, thank you, Shanae. I think, tied into, the culture of respect and understanding, and earlier even Derek mentioned that when he talked about policing, that they need to understand the culture. So understanding culture and even understanding what culture is just mainstream, is a culture in a city hall situation or in your own business or within your own family. So when we're all young, our parents teach us to respect our elders, respect our teachers. So respect is a big thing. And yet at the same time, we over and over again, we see examples of people really moving away from that. And the other part I think that ties into it is understanding, so many of us look at change as something that's either, this emotional negativity towards it, rather than this opportunity to have this thriving response. And what I have found is very often, people that have limited beliefs about an individual or a situation tend to become very protective, and then you also at that point see that their ability to offer respect to other people diminishes. So yes on education, yes on awareness, yes on understanding that there needs to be a filter and saying, what can I learn from this person, what can I learn from the situation, is there a lesson in it for me, and what can I take away from it? So those are the sort of things that come to my mind. And what's important is, very often we've said it's not even what you're saying, it's how you're saying. We know that those of us that are communication experts or study communication understand that it's not even the words as much as the energy that it's felt. That we only remember 7% of what somebody says, but it's everything else. Is that body language? It's the energy that you're transmitting. So that's something that I think we definitely can do a little bit more building on and fostering in the community.
Absolutely. So now we've addressed respect because it is one of the things that is very important in decision making. We also have come to realize that one of the hindrances or one of the barriers to respect is fears. So the next question is like each person to just tell us some of your fears. And when we think about fears, there are any fears. They can be personal fears. They can be fears as it relates to the community and the world around you. And so it's very clear. So the sky is limitless. So I don't want you to put yourself in a particular box, thinking that when I ask this question, that you're having to answer this related to the panel. But we do want to talk about fears, just very candidly. And then after we discuss each person's fears, I'll be able to help to tie everything together for you. So now for this particular question, we are going to start with Lita.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Are you talking now? We can't.
Here we go.
Okay.
I'm sorry. My computer. It's been one heck of a day. So anyway, I really would like to hear a little bit more about connecting more of the community. How do you see yourself bridging that gap that is obvious right now, and bringing, you say you're a mayor for all of Ocala. What does that
We're
mean
going
to
to
you,
get
and
right
how
there,
would you
leader. Right
bring
now, we're just talking about what our fears are just in general. Like when you think for leader,
our
what is a
fears?
fear of yours? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, a fear of mine is Well, the greatest fear right now is where we are as a state and with the COVID, and having the respect of everyone understanding that this is an issue for me. I've lost a lot of family members to this virus. I'd like to see, I don't know what the answer is to that. I really don't. But I know that having lost several family members to this, I'm concerned about what is happening in Ocala. I have a friend who's in the funeral business, and I mean, just last week had 9 people who passed, who's taking care of 9 people, 9 families who passed in Ocala. So that is a great fear. You want to know what I'm fearing? I'm fearing that, we're not getting this right.
Thank you. Derek, what are a fear or fears of yours? We can't hear you. You gotta love technology. So we're going to go to Kyle and then come back to you, Derek, okay? Okay.
So I would say a fear of mine. So I don't know everybody here. I'm known as a talker. I always have been, always am. Always got the little marks on my report card, talks too much in class. My biggest fear is losing my voice. Some people use that quote, stay quiet so that at least if people perceive you as an idiot, it's okay. But if you open your mouth, you remove all doubt. I don't believe in that whatsoever. I believe that if I don't use it and I don't speak and I don't talk, if you don't use it, you'll lose it. And one of the biggest things that has by far impressed me with Manal is no matter what it is, where it is, Facebook, text, I don't know if she's ever not answered somebody. Everybody always has a voice when they're talking to her. That's one of the reasons that I'm here today. But that is my biggest fear, is losing my voice.
Thank you. Derek, are we able to get your sound? We can't hear you. I'm not sure what happened. Okay, so we're gonna go to Joanne. Derek, maybe try leaving and then coming back in. Okay, and then Joanne, what are a fear or fears of yours?
Okay. Well, I think my personal fear is, as I'm getting older, that I will reach a point where I won't be able to make a difference anymore. That fear of not being able to communicate would be my very worst fear, would be being immobilized and not being able to communicate my needs. On a societal level, I am terrified of the divisions in this country right now. I am really, really fearful that this is going to be so hard to bridge that I don't know where our country's going to go. And it's scary.
Thank you. And then Jackson, if we'll see if when Derek gets back into the waiting room, if we can see if that fixed his sound. And then Manal, what is a fear or fears of yours?
Thank you. I think naturally something that we talk about a lot is, we humans have a fear of rejection, fear of not being loved, fear of not being enough. And then I guess for myself personally, the thing that I think I worry about, and I have to remind myself that everything is in God's hands, is my family, my children. Sometimes you get that phone call that changes your life. There's something that happens, but it's just keeping grace in the family, and being true to who you are, and not being worried about pleasing everyone, but just being sincere and leaning into your true self, your identity, and not feeling that you have to compromise who you are, and not having people shame you. So those are the things that to counteract a fear. But I think truly we humans do have this, fear of rejection, and sometimes we act on that because we want to avoid that. So it's just a reminder as you get older and you get a little bit wiser, that you get a little stronger in knowing yourself. But that would be the thing for myself, really when I allow myself to start thinking about my family and children, that would be the fear, my personal fear.
Thank you. And Derek, did that fix your sound? I'm not sure why we lost you. Maybe if there is a Bluetooth or a speaker option on your phone, to try that. Sometimes I do that with my phone. Is it streaming? If it's streaming through the car, maybe disconnect it from the car. So why Derek works on that, the reason that we wanted to address fears is because we're actually going to start. Did that work, Derek? Is because we're going to get into the issues. And so one of the things that we want people to know and understand and resonate with people is fears are what motivate us. Fears drive us. And sometimes we make, poor choices or poor decisions due to fear. And sometimes, depending on the personality, fears can actually strengthen us. The reason that we want to address fears is because as Americans and as people, we are always programmed that you don't let anyone see any source of weakness, and fears are viewed as weaknesses. But if you look at science and survival of the fittest is how we survive and actually how we win, then we need to address fear so that way we can actually be strategic about overcoming those fears in order to be able to create truly viable solutions. One of the reasons that people are opposed to change is because of fear. And we have people that prey upon fear. And because fear can actually be stifling or debilitating, people don't take the time to vet information, vet decisions, or even think of things in a very creative and collaborative manner to come up with solutions. So many of the solutions that we have are reactionary. So if we are proactive with addressing our fears, things like COVID, or losing our voice, or the inability to advocate. Like for me, my driving force and my fear is, and people look at me as fearless, is I fear dying and leaving my children in the world in the state that it's in. So that's what motivates me to get out of bed. That's what keeps me when I feel like I'm tired and want to walk away from the fray of activism and organizing. And so when we learn to tap into our fears in order to ensure that we're more powerful, we come together in order to be able to better strengthen our community. And so that was the reason we want to put those things out there as we actually start to talk about some of the issues and some of or problems or what we want to or needs of the community. So next we're actually going to go and talk. So Manal talks very often about public safety, about the homelessness in the community, and about smart growth. So we actually want to start to talk about the issues. The first we want to address is public safety. And what we just want to ask people is, what does public safety mean to you? And would anyone like me to call someone? Well, Kyle, since you told me that you're a person that likes to use your voice, I would like to start with you.
Okay. So I'm not a public safety or public policy expert. But I do think that to me, public safety is the way that we. Sorry, I'm looking for my words on this one. So, just keeping people safe. It's right there in the verbiage. Whether it be through policing. Now, I don't necessarily agree with the militarizing of police. However, I believe that public safety could start, from a clinical standpoint. I know there's a few of us in here that work in healthcare. From a clinical standpoint, there's a lot of psychological and external factors in how we can help keep people safe, whether it be through psychology, whether it be through healthcare, whether it be through different programs to help people with substance abuse. Throwing someone in jail and throwing away the key is not going to help them break a habit. It's not going to help them not end up back there. Public safety to me is a safety net. It's somewhere to land that you're not going to get broken.
Absolutely.
Not something to punish people.
Absolutely. So according to FDLE and FBI and lived experiences of the community members, crime is rising exponentially. How have you seen this impact the community? And would anyone like to jump in and answer?
It
So
broke
there's
up.
Okay. Is it breaking up? Okay. I will ask that question again. According to FDLE and FBI and the lived experiences of community members, crime is rising exponentially. How have you seen this impact the community? Derek, did we get your sound working? I don't know what happened.
Can he use the
Okay.
chat?
If we can have someone else to jump in, Derek, if you want to just briefly give the chat function. Okay. And then Lita or Joanne.
Yeah. Are we waiting on Derek first?
No, we're going to let one of you answer while he's typing.
Okay, well, while he's typing fast, I think one of the reactions is fear when people see crime rising, and there can be, when that happens, there can be a tendency to blame and a tendency to, to react in a very punitive, guarded way. But I think we have to look at the reason for whatever the crime may be. And a lot of times, when crime is the result of poverty or substance abuse, then addressing the cause is critical. Enforcing the law is important, but it's certainly not enough. And I'm sorry that the phrase defund the police was ever started, because it gives the wrong impression. I think refunding or reallocating the resources for the police is so important, so that more is put on into prevention and relationships in areas of high crime. When it is mental illness or substance abuse, addressing that as a cause from a different standpoint. But then, heck yeah, hold people accountable for what they've done.
Absolutely. Derek, are you typing? So I will interject just even as the moderator, Joanne. Okay, so Derek says, we see the rise in gun violence. That concerns me. There are too many youth that are dying and leaving a legacy of life lost. This has to change. And that is one of the things that I wanted to actually interject. When we see crime rising, I always want people to know and understand that it means that there is something that it's a failure of society, or it's a failure of a community. We don't like to look at crime as that's what it actually is, but research and data actually shows that most often anyone that actually committed was a victim first. And so if we understand that we must stop criminalizing homelessness and poverty, and then actually addressing substance abuse issues appropriately and addressing mental health issues appropriately, that you will actually see a reduction in crime. And so, Derek stated a great thing, which was one of the reasons I wanted him to answer, because of the work that he does. Now, the next question is, there is a pattern of strained relations between Ocala Police Department and the citizens that they are sworn to serve. It seems that there have been no substantive solutions implemented. As a vested community member, what are your thoughts on the disparate impact caused by a lack of meaningful solutions? And if no one wants to answer, Manal, we'll kick the ball to you.
Yeah, thank you. I think anytime you hear something like that, it really is an issue that you have to bring people together to address. So for someone to say that there is that policing isn't being done right, or that there's suspicion, there's a lack of trust, then it needs to be, a call to action, and bringing the right community members together to find out what is happening. Sometimes it's purely misunderstanding. Sometimes it's a lack of awareness. Sometimes it's a lack of caring, and we have to really shift that. So I would say that in this case, it's something that we have to be honest about and implement those conversations to find out where is the divide, where is the division, why isn't it happening to a better level where it works for everyone. So I would say, again, let's bring the right people together to have this conversation. You can cite examples, you can cite research, you can give some innovative and creative ideas of how we can improve it. So the cities where it works well and where you have trust between your law enforcement officers and the citizens is through community engagement. So for example, we've heard that there's internal affairs. Well, maybe we need to have external affairs. So if we are transparent and we're not hiding anything, then there's no fear of having the community reading in and listening and paying attention and offering that type of conversation or that type of advice. Companies do it all day long. You have advisory boards for the reason that people giving you different insights so you can understand. I have given you, some of my friends an example. Years ago when I interned for a pharmaceutical company, Merrill Dow, and they launched this campaign for a product called Seldane, multi-million-dollar campaign, and it failed miserably. And the reason it failed miserably is because they used the wrong words. They used the words allergic rhinitis. The average citizen had no idea what allergic rhinitis was. It was the flu, it was the cold. As soon as they changed their words, their sales, it became one of the best-selling drugs on the market, Seldane. And then they did Seldane D with the decongestant. So just an example from my scope of work of how important it is to communicate and to make sure that you're connecting the community and law enforcement. And I've said it many times, we don't want the same headlines that we see across the nation. And I like what Dr. Joanne said about the whole defunding word. It's interesting because I think you're absolutely right. And you have to think about context and when that came about. I think everybody wants a safe community. We respect the role of our police officers. We don't want them overreaching. We don't want tanks in the street. That is not a healthy city. That is not the look that we need in Ocala. We do need our police to be trained. We need them to be paid well. We need them to be balanced. We need to make sure that they understand the culture, and we need to bring the community together. So if policing, I'm hearing, is different on one side of the city versus the other side of the city, that's not a good look. So we need to bring the right members together to address that and be very specific, and then shift the formula that we're using currently.
Absolutely. So I want to point out to everyone that is listening in, Manal has not been prepped at all for tonight's roundtable. And that is because we wanted to be as authentic as possible. So it's interesting, even as she talked about public health and she's given us things related to drugs and things like that. Well, public safety includes our fire department, fire rescue. It includes law enforcement. It also includes things like addressing COVID in a particular manner in our opioid crisis. So I wanted to give you all some information and data, and then actually kick it to you, Manal, to be able to answer this question. And then if anyone else would like to actually interject as it relates to this, please, by all means. According to a report from Well Florida Council, in 2017, our community lost 132 lives to drug-related deaths, translating to a death rate of 37.3 per 100,000 residents, surpassing Florida's overall death rate of 24.2 per 100,000 during the same year. According to a recent study by the Orlando-based Project Opioid, this year, the number of people that have died of overdoses has increased more than 100%, and the year is not over yet. I personally believe that this is an issue that falls under the radar, especially since the pandemic. How do you believe this opioid crisis impacts the community? And are there any solutions, if any, that we have that we might implement?
And you're asking me, right, Shanae?
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm happy to hear other ideas. So something that's interesting is actually in 2017, I gave my TEDx talk on the Jacksonville TEDx stage about the opioid crisis, and it was defining and defeating the opioid crisis with the numbers, with the going in and looking historically how we got to where we got. And some of the interesting information that you find is that definitely there's an awareness that has started to grow. And even back then in 2017, every 12 minutes, somebody would die. And the average, was under 50. And we say, like, under 50, you're in your prime. And here you are, you're dying from an opioid crisis. So it's an addiction. And addiction, what people miss is an illness. It's not, what happens is the neural pathways in our brain change. So even if I were to say to Derek or Kyle, you're going to lose your children, you must stop using opioids or drugs. the fact that you are actually have lost control to even make those decisions is part of that addiction and that illness. And that's why it takes a loving community to really work with someone and get them redirected. So there have been many projects all across the country, including, taking back drugs. Also, you find the Narcan, the availability of Narcan, training the first responders to have it, to help, which is a drug that helps reverse that, when somebody is basically overdose. The other thing that we need to be thinking about is just so much of it is community engagement and love. So I always say there's the pain beneath the pain. And then the other question is, we found through the research is most people are getting their opioids from, let's say, their grandmother's medicine cabinet. So the question that we need to be asking is, why does every grandma have opioids, or narcotics, Oxycontin, oxycodone in her medicine chest? The other piece that we also realize is in the state of Florida, we were the #1 prescribers. Like, if you were to look at what we call pill mills, and if you look for the 100 pill mills, 99 of them were in the state of Florida. So since then, that has been corrected, and people are working and they understand the importance of it. And sadly, a lot of it, started because we were duped to believe that they were not addictive, these drugs. So we were just handing them out. Physicians were writing it for pain medication. And then, of course, easy access. So what I'm saying is that as a community, it's understanding that if someone is addicted, is that you have to really work and get them on the path. And there are different, centers that help you with that. And one of the recommendations when the lawsuits started to come out against the pharmaceutical companies was, let's make them pay for these treatment facilities. That should be part of the agreement in terms of giving back to the communities for what has been caused by Purdue Pharma and some of these other companies. So what can we do? I think we need to look at some of the creative and innovative projects that are being done across the country, because there's some communities that are taking the lead, people that are really have a heart for that type of work. And then it's asking yourself the cause. You have to start with, the early involvement. We talk about that whole campaign that we heard about, and Just Say No to Drugs. Many of you are familiar that are my age. That was like a big campaign. Billions and millions of dollars are spent on that campaign. And unfortunately, not just saying that is not enough. It's really being involved in people's lives and showing them a better path. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to interject? So I'm just going to, okay, go ahead.
That's kind of hard to follow up, but now I can say who better to handle this.
Absolutely. And I want to point out, I had no idea that you did a TEDx talk. So the reason that I actually put this question on for tonight's panel is because of just feedback from the community. So this is something that, as we're out talking to people, that people brought up. And for me, it had fallen under the radar just because of the pandemic. So I just believe that that's phenomenal, not even knowing her position, or actually that there's a body of work that she already has done. And I think it's a great contrast seeing, I think it was one interview they did with the radio. And one of the things and I have to say that, just being honest, from the current mayor, was the solution was to prosecute people for drug addiction. And that's not the way in order to fix this. So to know that, even with compassion, to understand that we need to remove the stigma in order to be able to address that, I just believe it's phenomenal. And we appreciate that. So now we're at the 8 o'clock point. We're going to take a 5-minute break to let people know that are tuning in. We're going to address homelessness and then smart growth when we come back, very briefly. And then we will actually have each panelist to actually let us know why they support Manal. And Derek, you're more than welcome to go ahead and type that to give you time so you don't have to type as fast. And then we're going to actually take some questions from the viewers. And then Manal will actually give us a particular closing, and then I will finish up at that time. So we'll see you all back at 8:05. Okay, it is now 8:05. So give everyone a moment to get their cameras back on. It's ironic that 5 minutes really goes by fast. And thank you all for hanging with us. So we're going to see if Derek was able to get his technical issues worked out. Lita actually had to leave in order to take care of an emergency. So she does send her apologies, but I want it to be known, greatly appreciate her for participating. Okay, and hi there, welcome back. Just for anyone that is actually coming back after a 5 minute break, we just took a moment. We're getting close to the actual end. We're just going to have the panelists to discuss two more issues. One will be homelessness, and then also smart growth for our community, so we know with expectations. Then we'll have each person to let us know, just from their own words and their own viewpoint, why they support Manal. We will be taking questions from viewers. So if you have any of those questions, you're more than welcome to drop them under the Facebook, the YouTube, or also via the Zoom link, and we'll get those questions answered for you. So when we left off, Manal gave us some amazing information regarding the opioid crisis and then some of the solutions. Derek shared with us that we also have to look at where the addiction root lies. He states that many times people are born into this position and they need support at an early age to get them on a better track. And I do think that is phenomenal. Typically, a lot of things are root causes, and many things are generational. And even a lot of data and research shows that. That's why there's been a lot of push around the 0 to 5 early learning age to really start to engage people. So I think that is great feedback and input from Derek, and we appreciate that. So our next issue or topic is homelessness. The last time we saw a major spike in homelessness was after the 2008 recession, when the housing market crashed. As we are approaching 2.5 years on COVID-19 crisis, and with the recent suspension of the eviction moratorium, we can expect a dramatic rise in evictions and homelessness. How can our city brace for this? What do we get folks that need help?
Are you calling on somebody or?
Well, Joanne, I'll call on you.
Well, I think that there's a lot of data to support the fact that we've got to have affordable housing. It's just not there. So even people who are scraping up enough where they could have rented a few years back, they have to come up with $800 to $1,000 a month. We just don't have it. Even people who can afford it are having a hard time locating housing. We've got to start with affordable housing, and I think it can be done. I think it's going to take a lot of collaboration, a lot of commitment, but it is possible. There are buildings that could be used to house people who cannot afford housing. It's going to take a commitment. And there even someone who knew about this issue was telling me the other day that I guess there are these emergency housing vouchers that are available, but those are, and they were available in June, but they're kind of locked up because the city and the county cannot reach an agreement on how to administer those, and their lawyers are not, so they're just kind of waiting to be signed. 51 emergency housing vouchers are just sitting there. And the threshold for being considered for receiving some funds, and I can't remember the name of which ones right in Marion County, is like the lowest threshold in the state. So if you make under $22,000 or $23,000, you do not qualify for extra help in affording, like first month, last month, and utilities down payment. So I think it's a huge obstacle, and I think it's clearly going to get worse when the eviction moratorium is over and when stimulus checks run out.
Thank you. Kyle or Derek, would you like to weigh in?
Am I able to be heard?
Yes,
Yes.
you are.
Okay.
You've been awfully quiet. I'll let you go first.
I think we need to get in a position, and I understand with the government, that's a tough position to really dig into the needs of the people and to really actually find out what's going on with them. And I believe that's why they're in the pickle that they're in right now, trying to figure out where to feed the funds to. So I don't know if there's a better strategy. Well, I shouldn't say that. There is a better strategy that we just have to figure it out on how to get in and really understand the real true needs of the people, and to assure that the funds are being utilized properly. I think that's a big part of the holdups. And when I say, and I know a lot of people look at, well, they're homeless, but at the end of the day, we have to address the recidivism. I believe that's where we're at. You know, why are they continuously in that position? Because if we don't fix it, we're going to continue to have the problem.
Thank you. And Kyle, would you like to give us any feedback?
So when my company looks to build a store in a specific location, we look at a lot of market research based on housing prices. The company I work for targets lower income people. And I don't say target to sound like a bad thing. We provide affordable eyewear and eye care for all. So we look at certain areas, and we actually are bringing a store to Ocala, I think sometime next year. And one of the things that we watch is the shift in housing. So I'm sure people have heard this before, but all of your developers, your real estate agents, they are hoarding their pennies right now, because as those moratoriums wear off and we assume people are going to become homeless, the market is going to fluctuate. So as houses are foreclosed on, as people are forced to move out, houses are going to sell and become more readily available at a lower price again. So it's all in an economic impact and how that's going to fluctuate and change. I think that it could create a temporary problem, but I don't think that it's going to create a major long-term effect, because what's going to happen is those developers, real estate agents, they are going to buy those houses, and they are going to buy them for much less than what they're currently going for. What that's going to do is create more potential for them to rent it at a lower rate. I know Joanne said earlier that people are struggling to pay $800 to $1,000 a month. The average right now, believe it or not, is actually $1,400 to $1,600 a month, not $800. $800 existed 5 years ago, and so
I'm talking about my just out of high school kids who are trying to get out on.
Oh yeah,
out from mom and dad. They're finding them at $800 and $1,000, but they're not for a family.
Right, and so it's unlivable. So these extremely high prices, they're not going to last. We saw this in 2008. We saw it happen multiple times with microaggressions. And so I think what we need to do is, instead of focus on giving people money for now, focus on giving them the ability to save and purchase later, but also have those programs available for first months, last months, and security deposits, so that, as they are forced out of their current house and as the market shifts more from ownership to, once the moratoriums wear off, to rental, then they'll have the resources needed to be able to purchase again and or find another home. It's just a transfer of wealth, basically.
Thank you. And Manal?
Yeah, thank you all for your comments, and I agree with many of the comments that I heard. And I think something to also think about, if you think of homelessness more of a mindset than, meaning that you can look at people as being unhoused, and then you have this homeless mentality. So what we need to do is ask ourselves, how can we help, our most vulnerable residents, And knowing that we here in our city back in 2017 commissioned a study, so we have the data. And very often you ask yourself, okay, who are the stakeholders? So something I'm doing right now, even as a candidate and the people that I'm speaking with, and when people ask me about my platform, I mention homelessness, tackling homelessness. And I've had over and over again, and now I'm starting to track those individuals that are saying to me, I want to work with you on that issue. That is important to me. So the other thing is to asking ourselves, well, what is the extent? Do we have 500 homeless individuals? And are they the chronic homeless or are they the temporary homeless individual? Also, what is our approach? What have we done in the past? How effective has it been? What have we not tried? What is working in other communities? I was recently in a conversation and I had heard that IHMC in Pensacola received a national award for a project that they did with the homeless, where they were able to reduce it to a minimal number. So that's someone in our community that we can pull and learn from. And the other thing that we need to ask ourselves currently, it's like anything in any project that you're working on, whether it's cancer or homelessness, what resources do we currently have? Do people know about the resources? Are we connecting people so that they understand what we have? And then, of course, you want to look at the aspects of mental health. Whether it's substance abuse, is it just a lack of employment? Is it someone? And we've heard the stories. We have two candidates that say that they were homeless. They're running for city council. A friend of mine just shared with me privately. They said, "I want to share with you. I was a homeless person." So I love that he was comfortable enough to let me know that. But it's a testament to how people can shift their lives with a little bit of help. So what the study said to us, the PPI, is you need to shift to a housing first model, versus where you get the housing at the end. So in any time that you're trying to tackle a problem as big as homelessness, and it's not a quick fix, you have to have a plan. You have to have the funds, and I think some of the funds that we're talking about could potentially be government grants that we can pull from, and just bringing all the stakeholders together. So it takes a good amount of leadership. It takes heart, and it takes really caring, that you really care about making an impact for that community. So I believe that we have a lot of the right people in the community that care, and we have some good resources. We just need to do some better coordination with the use of these resources.
Thank you. So I appreciate everyone's feedback. And with the homelessness and many of the things that Manal actually mentioned, where it relates to collaboration and bringing other stakeholders to the table, that actually brings us into our next discussion, which is smart growth. And so with smart growth, I want Manal to actually start first and just tell us, what does it mean when she states smart growth? I do want to give people a point of reference. Florida is on a steady course of growth, with more and more people moving here. How do we as a city ensure that our infrastructure can sustain the growth? And how do we preserve our city's charm while welcoming all to raise their families and live their lives here?
Okay. So thank you. And with that growth, comes, other situations, and, you want to grow, and you want to grow responsibly. So growth is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. We just have to be planning and having that long-term vision. So again, you have, for example, your zoning and planning committee. You want to make sure that, you're not just issuing permits, not thinking about the traffic patterns, the infrastructure, what incentives are you providing, and is it fair and equitable? What does it mean for the city? Is there a partnership where a developer is actually involved, and now you have that public-private collaboration happening for you? So I say that when we talk about growth, that we have to have a master plan, rather than just agreeing to permit one developer or another developer. Really ask yourself, what is this going to look like, and what is it going to mean for the community? So very often what happens is, decisions are being made, and then that community, wherever you live, you don't hear about it. And then all of a sudden it's coming to your neighborhood, and then you show up at City Hall to try to overturn it, and you're unhappy. So I think it's really important that part of the method needs to be to prevent some of that, is ask yourself, if it was you living in this neighborhood, what would it mean to you, and what is it ultimately going to bring to the city and to the residents and the quality of life? So growth is great. We just, I am pro-growth and I'm pro-business. I also believe that, the way you do affordable housing is you have more housing, because it's supply and demand. The only thing that I'm saying is that it needs to be thought out, thoughtfully and with a long-term vision, and not just, approving a permit, not thinking about the consequences that come from that approval.
Thank you. And Kyle, I'm going to kick it to you next. I think you gave some really amazing points as we talked about previous issues related to homelessness. So I think that there's a great viewpoint that you can give on smart growth. I can't hear you.
Sorry. To me, smart growth is sustainable growth. And what that means is, as we grow as a community, we need to be looking at, first of all, certain land usage areas. We need to consider impact fees to make sure that the resources are still available within the city after we expand. Smart growth is homelessness, or tackling homelessness. Smart growth is also making sure we're bringing in companies that are not hiring to fire. A lot of companies right now have the philosophy of hire to. I know it's going to sound weird, but the reason we hire to is because there's a 50-50 chance we're going to fire at least one of them, or let them go, or they're going to leave on their own fruition within the first 90 days. Amazon, I read earlier today, just invested a ton of money to bring in like $18 an hour jobs. But the very first comment under that was, are they bringing in all these jobs and all these workers? They increase their pay to bring them in. But is that pay going to continue to increase? $18 an hour sounds like a lot when you're at the bare minimum of the socioeconomic level, but it doesn't even scratch the surface. That will get them into the median bracket of socioeconomic welfare. But the other thing that I say that they really need to pay attention to, and the city needs to bring to light, and I already talked to Mal about it previously, was as we bring in these companies, we need to watch what kind of companies we're bringing in. In the 1990s, Ocala, Marion County was the epitome of manufacturing. If it could be built, it was built there, especially the mobile home market, industrial market, stuff like that. Those have all faded with the automation of manufacturing. As you bring in robots and you bring in technology that you no longer need people for, that have a less cost to upkeep than paying a salary every year, that all went away. That attributed to the market crash in 2008. You can look at companies like Dayco. Dayco was one of the largest manufacturers of, I think it was plastic tubing or something like the rubber. And they up and went. Now, as we're bringing in all of these distribution companies, what is the likelihood that the distribution companies like FedEx, Amazon, all that stuff, what's the likelihood that those jobs are going to last 10, 20 years, and then that company is just going to move on? We've collected no impact fees. We now have a larger population and a large population out of work. So what measures is the city taking as they're bringing these companies in and growing our population to ensure that this doesn't happen again as it happened in 2008 to 2011?
Thank you. That was amazing. So another component of smart growth is youth development. Smart growth includes watering the seeds that will bloom into the leaders of our community. Currently, Ocala only has a handful of youth development programs, including for Corey Youth Leadership. What do you think that can be done in order to better invest in our youth? And Derek, is it okay if you and then Joanne weigh in?
Hello?
Yes.
We I'm a believer in the Fakori Leadership Academy. That was another opportunity that I had to get involved with one of our community leadership programs through Miss Fakori, and it was a phenomenal job that she did, and we saw many different people represented in that group, and I just had a wonderful time engaging with those youth. But it's needed. One being, we need to see life from other aspects. I think Ms. Fakori, she brought in a well-diverse group of people that would that really triggered the youth and showed them other opportunities that they had outside of possibly what they had already seen. And I think we need more of this activity in our community, more programs that are set up that people can understand the differences and the positions that you can be put in to win in life. And from a youth standpoint, I really applaud Ms. Fakori. There are some other engagements going on in our community, but I feel like it's needed more.
Thank you. And Joanne?
Wow. I don't have an answer, but I wonder if, I mean, it to be me that it needs to be a large scale collaboration where perhaps law enforcement, churches, schools, incentives for businesses to sponsor and provide internships for young people. It seems like a large scale kind of a collaboration. And I'm listening to these great answers. I'm also thinking, well, so what can the mayor do about it? So, in your position
Everything
as
you just
mayor,
named.
huh?
The mayor
What?
can do everything that you just named by bringing those people, those entities together.
Well, I think it's very, very needed, and I'm sure that there are segments of the community that would be really helpful to involve that I haven't thought of, but it's a place to start.
Thank you. And Manal, would you like to weigh in?
Oh, on one of my favorite topics. I'll share very quickly. I recall being in 6th grade and being allowed to leave class and attend a conference. And I recall sitting next to the girl that was in, her name was Patricia Aguilar. Can you imagine? I don't remember some of my friends in high school, but I remember her name. She was our student body president, class president. And I got to sit next to her. I remember the building, the glass windows. It was in Port Hueneme, California. Why would that moment be so meaningful to me and so memorable? And honestly, it was, I think, the opening of my mind and ability to see that I could be part of something and learn and invest in myself. And it meant a lot. It was something that was very fulfilling. I went on to be involved in many different leadership programs to the point that when I had my children, I was sending them to Washington, D.C. I was sending them to New York. There's a National Youth Leadership Forum, NYLF. It had a high ticket price. You were sending your kids away for 6-7 days. But it was my honor to be able to do that because I wanted to expose them and have them have that opportunity. And I remember thinking to myself, why don't we have anything like that in Ocala? And that is really when it was born. I'm trying to remember the exact year, but 7 years ago. And I wanted to create a first-class leadership conference. And I brought in, some of the best speakers. We didn't, discount anything. And we wanted our students to really feel that it was interactive, that they were connecting. We gave them, the ground rules. And it was really beautiful. And we also wanted each year that students could actually repeat and feel like they had a completely different experience. So we would change our speaker lineup. It was very successful. And my goal was to be able to do even more of that, always remembering just because we live in Ocala doesn't mean that we can't attract, and my youth leadership program would not attract people from Michigan, from California. And we had people that actually came and attended from out of state and out of the city of Ocala. And what's beautiful, of course, now is everybody's connected. So those friendships were able to blossom and continue. So I know students that are still connected. But the other beautiful piece about this is some of the work that I've been fortunate to do in the prison. I got pulled in to do some leadership training in the prison, and they heard about the youth leadership program or the conference. So by their request, we actually did a 2-day conference in the prison for the inmates. And one of the most rewarding comments was, I have never attended anything like this. Perhaps if I had attended this, my life may have been different. And something I tell my students is don't only attend this conference, try to attend 3 to 4 conferences a year, because magical things do happen in those type of settings, in terms of, the conversations, and you remember differently in the interactions. The other thing I heard today that I really loved is in the meeting that we had with the Governor's West, and they had the superintendent of school speaking, and they're talking about having a parent university and having more leadership training in the school system. And I think that whole leadership segment is missing. It's funny because when I hear the word leadership, it's like my ears perk up. It's something that I really crave and desire. Riyadh and I invest a lot in our own personal and professional development. So we follow and we do a lot of the work with Tony Robbins. So some of you may have heard of him, some of you may have not, but he is global and his content is excellent. And really that's where we go for that. We also we are part of a peer group, a global peer group that allows you to think differently and know what's happening in different parts of the world. Something that I had a chance to speak with a developer that surprised me. He had no idea about 3D printing. They are now 3D printing homes. So if you want to talk about affordable housing, that is something, that's a technology that's available. So definitely the world is changing. The world is shifting. We are connected. We are fused, and we have the possibility and the ability to connect and bring things that we have never done before. But it just takes a little bit of courage. It takes some conversation, some vetting and assessment to ask ourselves. And a lot of times it's the questions that we're not asking. So it's not even the answers that you're looking for. It's when somebody said, why don't we have a YMCA in Ocala? And now we have one of the best in the country. Why don't we have a youth leadership program? Now we have Youth Leadership Ocala, which is through the chamber, the CEP. And then even later, we asked about United Way. Now United Way has their own ambassador program, because the other program at the CEP had become so competitive. We said, why aren't we doing this? There's youth philanthropy now as a program. So there's definitely, and it's so smart to invest in people, in our young people, because it starts at an early age and it's something they can replicate. So I'm excited about what we can do with our youth. Thank you.
Thank you. So some really amazing answers. I'm really excited from hearing the answers. So now we're coming to the point of the discussion where each of you is just going to let people know very succinctly why you support Manal. And we'll start with Kyle.
So I've known Manal off and on through my entire life. She is always there. She's always in the room, no matter what room it's been. I've grown up in politics with my family. I've done a lot of philanthropic work in Marion County and around, and I have not talked to her a lot until this year, actually. But I think I've talked to her a few times in the past as well. But she's just always there, always willing to listen, and always answers. There's very few people in politics that will respond back to you. I do think from a medical standpoint, given the current situation of the city of Ocala with the opioid crisis and COVID-19, that we need to have somebody in the room who has a educational understanding of how these situations are created, of how these companies work, of how to get the community to react to what they need to be doing, whether it be through the vaccines, whether it be through, working with the police department on the opioid crisis. And with Manal being a pharmacist, I don't think we could have anyone better to tackle the major issues going on in Ocala right now.
Thank you. And Joanne, would you like to share with others why you support Manal?
Sure. It's funny because now I first met each other, I think probably through junior league. We both finished residencies at U of F, and we both were like new moms, and I haven't had a whole lot of contact. I keep hearing about Manal who doesn't know all the amazing things that you've done? You'd have to be an ostrich with your head in the sand. And I want to tell just one real short story, because I think that the fruit does not fall far from your tree. And that is shortly after 9/11, the pastor's wife at our church, Irvin Bullock, felt like it was really, really important to develop an interfaith youth council. So she and Malik Bakori got together, and they pretty much ran it, and they got some Jewish teenagers and they got some Christian teenagers, and they went around town and just educated people, different groups. educate people on how people with differences really have more in common than they have differences. And I was so touched and impressed by that. But now, fast forward to now, I think it's rare to have somebody who has both vision and the capability to carry out that vision. And like I said earlier, she's already done it through the TEDx talks, through the Gavel program in the prisons, through the leadership program that you've developed, through the All-In Women. You have demonstrated your core values of respect and peace and bringing people together, and leading with integrity. It's been there all along, and I'm just so excited. I think we will be so fortunate to have you as our mayor.
Thank you. And Derek?
Well, since the time that I met Mrs. Fakori, she has always stayed connected. She has been there to encourage. She's been there just her thought through tough times that she saw, the community going through. She would respond, to my particular family with some offer of love, and I really appreciate her and the way that she continuously looks for opportunities to get me involved and to be a part of what she's doing. And this was way far before any thoughts of mayor. And that's what I appreciate about her most, because she strives to stay connected and connected to the people that are out in the community. So I think that as for mayor, she's going to do the same thing for our community. Strive to stay connected and be that piece to pull together and help make it better.
That is wonderful. So we're now at this segment. As of yet, there have not been anyone that answered any questions, asked any questions. I apologize. And it could be because there's been such a robust conversation. There's been many notes that I myself have actually taken. I would like to interject the same way that Joanne did. I do believe the apple does not fall far from the tree. Prior to me getting involved in this particular campaign, I didn't know Manal, but I know Layla, her daughter. And being a person who is a major organizer and a huge advocate of doing right by people and equity and respecting people, I have a major respect for Layla. And then actually being able to encounter and get to know more about Manal, I know where she gets it from. And Layla, her daughter, has vision. She has passion, that care and connectedness for people. So it's been really exciting. And I'm really excited about the prospect of Ocala and what is to happen. So what we're going to do now is give Manal the opportunity to speak. I will ask if anyone does think of a question. Jackson will get that to me, but we're going to have Manal to speak, and then we're going to wrap up and then be able to take it in for tonight.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sinead, for organizing this and just for all of us to have time. And I can see us doing more really community roundtables. There's the whole restorative justice peace model where, someone has harm, rather than just going to the punishment, you try to restore, find out what happens and what needs to be done. And so I can see all, that, how important that can be in terms of us working in the community. As far as my candidacy, I'm super excited about it. For years, people have said to me, "Now, why aren't you running? When are you going to run?" I'll say, like, vividly, back in February when I was leaving the CEP luncheon, 3 people asked me, and my answer back then was, I need to have thick skin before I run. And I don't know where in June somehow a seed was planted. And so it's been a quick run because I didn't declare my candidacy until July 1st. I knew I had to, learn as much as I could, as quick as I could. And I'm so fortunate to have this amazing team that has been guiding me and helping me really just to get the message out. And I find that if people really would get to know someone else, there's a great quote by, I think it's by President Lincoln, where it says, "I don't like that man, I must get to know him." And it's so apparent of what we see. And we talk about politics, that it's dirty. And I say, why? Just because it was like that, does that mean it must stay this way? Is there a different way to win an election where you speak on your platform and your ideas and in exchange instead of trying to knock the other person? And yes, we see that on the national level, maybe even the global level. It's not what we need to be doing in Ocala. It's not what our campaign about. We have the inspirational, aspirational campaign. We are running a platform, or our platform on ideas that are worth sharing. And also, I'm just excited about the opportunity to continue to connect with people. It has been the best engagement for me to continue to knock on doors, meet the voters, find out what's important to them. And sometimes, you live in a community, but if you're not connecting with the voters on a specific topic in a specific role, such as mayor, you don't get to hear about the issues the way you would just being a business person. So myself, I am committed to the community. I came as a bride. I, raised my 5 children here. We built our business here. We've worked with many community leaders. Ocala has been great to our family. I believe my candidacy is a challenge for Ocala, but it's a good challenge because I think what we're seeing is that there is this growth and this ability to move forward. So I believe that I represent the American dream. My husband and I have worked hard. We will continue to work hard. And our goal truly is to be able to bless the community. We don't need my husband, Riyadh, who's still not even home right now, and that's typically his schedule, is driven. And it's not to change our lifestyle. It's really to leave a legacy behind. And that is why we work hard. And I'm so blessed to have, a strong partner in my life and to have good kids. And I always say that you must share, because I don't have to tell people about my faith. I show people my faith just by who I am and how I behave. And what's beautiful is that there is no conflict. There's no conflict in our faith, in the Constitution, in being American. And I'm just excited for people that are open to embrace me, because I think it increases democracy. It doesn't take away from our democracy. So when people talk about Sharia law, and really honestly, like some nonsense, like I didn't even know what Sharia law was. I learned about it from Fox News to the point. So I'm excited about the potential of Ocala moving forward. I believe in term limits, and I think I have, openly said it is time to pass the torch. And I am running with excitement, with experience, with grit. I'm so excited for Tuesday, and I hope the community will come out and support my candidacy and our campaign. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And so I'll be the person that will help to close everything down and tie it all together. I just want the resonating message. So feedback that we got from the people that sat on this panel tonight was, Manal has the educational understanding. She is impactful. She has vision. She does this with respect. She represents peace, integrity. She stays connected, and she's encouraging. And I don't care what facet of this community, where you live at geographically, what gender you represent, what nationality you represent, there is something in there for everyone. So it doesn't matter how much money you make or what your educational level is. She represents being a person that can identify and represent every single one of us. There's a great opportunity, just like with all of our tech issues today. How do we resolve them? We have to go back out and come back in and reset. Whenever your internet is acting up, what do? We reset. I look at September the 21st as the opportunity to reset. And so our asks are, if you're one of those people that has a vote by mail ballot, to turn that ballot into the supervisor of elections, because it has to be at a man drop box, or mail it tomorrow, but not any day further, to ensure that your vote gets counted. We're asking that if you don't return your vote by mail ballot in time, or if you've not voted, to actually show up on election day at your precinct. That is September the 21st. Polls are open from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. Our asks are to really tap in and connect with your friends. We all are here because we all have a relationship with someone that had a relationship with Manal. We all are here because we were able to build a relationship with Manal, whether it be professional or personal. Our relational, invitational invites to get people to the polls is what's going to resonate the most. We need volunteers for election day. We need about 50 more volunteers for election day. And we want to speak very clearly. We know that we're running a phenomenal campaign because the incumbent has now mirrored every single tactic that we have, from their phone banking, from the way that we are door knocking, from even the way that we're running our social media. We don't deem that to be a bad thing. but we want people to know and understand that that shows where leadership is and who has the vision to get Ocala on the right path for everyone. And that is Manal. So when you get off of this video today and tomorrow, text everybody that's in your phone. Ask them if they are an Ocala voter, if they're registered, and ask them to show up and vote for Manal. You can connect with us by going to Manal for Mayor and finding out more information. If you have questions, we are extremely receptive. We're answering all questions that are actually coming into the inbox. We're even answering the questions that are actually asked up under those posts. We are not going to stoop to the level of other people. For us, Manal has shown that she's a transformational leader by leading from the front and by leading from example. So therefore, we do engage with people that don't agree with us, but we're going to set the example on how to engage with those people. So we hope that you all learned something from tonight. I appreciate you all for giving your time. I learned so much from each of you on this panel. I look forward to us working on collaborative things once Manal is elected as the mayor of Ocala. And you all have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for your time and energy.